Quantum biology is not settled, it is not finished. And when you look at what sunlight actually does to living tissue at the quantum level, something remarkable emerges. Sunlight preserves a kind of coherence in biological systems that incoherent light cannot. The sun's light carries structure. Your body knows how to read that structure. A light bulb produces noise, and we are filling hospitals, offices, and homes with noise, expecting our bodies to function as if they were not built to respond to signal. I know what you are thinking right now. Coherence. That sounds like physics jargon. That sounds like something that has nothing to do with whether you feel good or not. That sounds like the kind of word scientists use when they want to sound important and nobody in the room understands what they are really saying. And I get that. I have spent 50 years watching that happen. But I need you to sit with the actual definition for a moment, because this is where the real physics starts. And this is where your intuition about your own body and the real mechanics of biology finally start to line up. Coherence means that waves are synchronized. It means that the light waves or water waves or sound waves are marching together in step. When light is coherent, all the peaks and valleys line up. All the crests arrive at the same place at the same time. When light is incoherent, the waves are scrambled, they are out of phase, they arrive at the same place at different times, they cancel each other out, and the result is noise. Now, a laser produces coherent light. The beam stays tight, it does not spread out. You can point it across a room, and it stays a beam. An incandescent light bulb produces incoherent light. It scatters, it spreads. Light goes everywhere in every direction, and the photons have no relationship to each other whatsoever. They are independent, they are random, they are noise. This matters for your body in a way that is not trivial. Your cells are not passive. They are not just sitting there absorbing whatever photons happen to hit them. Your cells are sophisticated enough to care about the difference between a beam and a scatter. Your cells have evolved for millions of years, not thousands of years, but millions, to extract information from coherent light. And when you replace coherent light with incoherent light, you are not just dimming the room, you are destroying the signal. The sun produces light that is not perfectly coherent, but it is far more coherent than anything in your house. The sun is a star. It is a sustained nuclear reaction. It produces light through a process that has been running for 4.6 billion years, and the light it produces has certain regularities, certain frequencies, certain patterns that no incandescent bulb or fluorescent tube can replicate. When sunlight hits your skin, it is hitting you with a signal that your body has learned to read at the molecular level. When an LED bulb hits your skin, it is hitting you with noise. I spent a long time not understanding this. I spent 30 years thinking that photons were photons. An electron absorbs a photon of a certain energy. It jumps to a higher energy state. Energy gets released. The electron falls back down. That is the basic picture. It is taught in every physics class. It is correct. And it is also incomplete. What I missed, what everyone missed for a long time, was the question of coherence. When an electron absorbs a photon from a coherent light source, the electron does not just absorb energy. The electron absorbs phase. It absorbs timing. The electron absorbs the relationship between that photon and every other photon in the beam. And that changes everything about how the electron behaves after that absorption. In biology, this becomes crucial. Your eyes do not work the way most people think. When light hits your retina, it sets off a cascade that involves quantum mechanics in a deep way. The photoreceptor cells in your eyes are not just detecting the presence of light, they are detecting the arrival time of photons. They are detecting coherence. A single molecule in your eye rhodopsin can absorb a single photon and trigger an electrical signal that reaches your brain. That sensitivity means that your eye cares about the phase of the light that hits it. A coherent beam of light produces one pattern of signals. Incoherent light produces a different pattern. even if the total number of photons is the same. But this is just the eye. The real story goes deeper, deep into the cells, deep into the mitochondria, deep into the place where your body actually captures light energy and turns it into the chemical energy that keeps you alive. There are photosynthetic molecules in your body. Not many of them, you are not a plant, but they are there. Chlorophyll is built into certain structures in your cells, carotenoids, flavins. These are light-absorbing molecules that have been inside living things for billions of years since the first cells learned to capture energy from the sun. And when these molecules absorb coherent light, something happens that does not happen. When they absorb incoherent light, the energy transfer becomes efficient. I want to be precise about this. In the 1970s, researchers started looking at photosynthesis and asking a question that sounds simple. When a photon hits a chlorophyll molecule, where does the energy go? How does it get to the reaction center where the work actually happens? And the answer they found was astonishing. The energy does not bounce around randomly like you would expect. It does not travel down a chaotic path where it might get lost or wasted. Instead, it takes a path that is mathematically optimal. The energy finds the best route, not all routes equally, the best route every time. That is coherence. That is quantum superposition at work inside a living cell. The energy is, in a real physical sense, taking all paths at once. And it takes the optimal path more often than random chance would predict. This happens in plant cells, this happens in bacterial cells, and evidence has emerged that this also happens in human cells, in structures that we have only recently started to understand properly. The protein complexes that sit in your mitochondrial membrane and harvest energy from sunlight are doing quantum computation. They are using interference patterns. They are using the wave nature of light and matter, not just the particle nature. This is where the coherence crisis becomes real. When you sit under fluorescent light or an LED bulb designed to mimic daylight but actually spectral noise, you are flooding your mitochondria with photons that have no phase relationship to each other. Your cells try to work with this noise, but they cannot achieve the same efficiency. The quantum computation that is supposed to be happening in your mitochondria degrades. The signal-to-noise ratio drops. Your cells have to work harder to extract the same amount of energy. And over weeks, over months, over years, that exhaustion accumulates. I am not saying that artificial light will kill you. It will not. But I am saying something harder to hear. Artificial light makes you work harder than you are supposed to. Your body has to expend more energy doing the same job. The inefficiency is real, it is measurable, and when you pile on top of that the disruption to your circadian rhythm, the suppression of melatonin, the misalignment of your hormonal cycles, the damage to your sleep architecture, you are not just using poor quality light, you are actively degrading the signaling that evolution spent millions of years tuning. This was not obvious to me when I was younger. I grew up thinking that the sun was just a heat source. It provided warmth. That was its job. The light it produced was incidental. But the more I learned about quantum mechanics, the more I learned about how information flows through living systems, the more I realized that the sun is not primarily a furnace. The sun is a transmitter. It is transmitting information. It is transmitting structure. It is transmitting the organized pattern that living things have evolved to decode. I had a conversation about this 15 years ago with someone I respect deeply. He was arguing that circadian rhythm disruption was the main problem with artificial light, and he was right. The circadian system is a real measurable disaster when you mess with it, but I kept pushing him on something else. I said, even if we fix the circadian problem, even if we turn off all the screens at sunset and sleep in perfect darkness, there is still something missing. And he finally got frustrated with me and said, what is it that you think is missing? And I did not have a good answer. But I kept thinking about it, and slowly the coherence picture emerged. It was not just about circadian rhythm. It was about energy transfer efficiency at the quantum level. It was about your cells trying to do quantum computation with classical noise. The mathematics started to make sense. I pulled apart the biophysics literature. I looked at what was happening in photosynthetic systems, and I started to understand that the researchers who had discovered quantum coherence in photosynthesis were not talking about something esoteric. They were talking about something that affects you every day. They were explaining why your body can tell the difference between sunlight and a light bulb in a way that goes deeper than circadian rhythm or heat or any single sensory mechanism. Your body can tell because your cells can tell. They can read coherence. Now, there is an assumption built into what I just said, and I want to name it directly. I am assuming that human cells use coherence in the same way that photosynthetic cells do. That has not been proven. That is still a frontier question. Some of the best researchers in the world are working on it right now, but the evidence is mounting. The discovery of quantum coherence in the light harvesting complexes of plants was published in 2007. Since then, similar coherence effects have been found in bird navigation, in enzyme reactions, in bacterial photosynthesis, in the olfactory system of insects. The pattern is clear. Evolution does not just stumble onto quantum mechanics by accident. Evolution ruthlessly optimizes for efficiency, and quantum coherence is more efficient than classical randomness. The objection I hear most often goes like this: but Leonard, if this were true, would not people who live in artificial light all day long immediately get sick? And the answer is no. They do not get immediately sick because your body has redundancy. Your body has backups. You have mitochondria by the millions. You have multiple pathways for energy production. You can compensate for inefficiency by working harder, but compensation has a cost. The cost is paid in increased oxidative stress. The cost is paid in accumulated cellular damage. The cost is paid in inflammation. The cost is paid slowly over years until you look around and realize that everyone around you is tired. Everyone is gaining weight for no obvious reason. Everyone's immune system is breaking down. And nobody can figure out why, because we are all trained to look for a single cause. A virus, a genetic mutation, a deficiency. But what if the cause is coherent with the environment? There is an old paper in the physics literature that I think about a lot. It is from the 1960s. A physicist named George Gamow was trying to understand how tunneling works in biology. How do electrons tunnel through barriers inside cells? And he derived a formula that showed that the tunneling rate increases dramatically if the electron is in a coherent state rather than an incoherent one. The coherent electron moves through the barrier faster, more reliably, with less wasted energy. That paper was almost forgotten, but it points to something fundamental. Coherence is not just a property of light. Coherence is a property of quantum systems in general, and your body is made of quantum systems. What kept me up at night for years was this question: if coherence is so important, why do we have any vision at all in conditions of incoherent light? Why do we not just stop working under artificial lights? And the answer is that eyes evolved in conditions of very different threat. Vision evolved because seeing a predator was more important than seeing efficiently. You can hunt or you can hide, and you can do both, even if your vision is dim and noisy. What you cannot do is violate your cell's basic requirements for energy production. Those requirements were forged over billions of years. They are not negotiable. You can survive in artificial light the way you can survive on a diet of junk food. You can get by, but you cannot thrive. And thriving is not a luxury. Thriving is what your ancestors did to make sure you existed. The coherence crisis is happening right now, and nobody is measuring it properly because we do not have the conceptual framework. We are looking for diseases. We are looking for deficiencies. We are not looking at the simple devastating fact that we have changed the fundamental quality of the light that hits our cells. We have replaced coherent signal with incoherent noise, and our bodies are trying to work with it, and they are failing, and we are treating the failure as if it is a mystery. I want to step back and connect this to something larger, because this is not really a speech about light. This is a speech about what we think we know about our own bodies and how wrong we are. For centuries, we thought the body was a machine. Then we thought it was a chemistry set. Then we thought it was a computer. And now, slowly, we are realizing that the body is something far stranger. It is a quantum system that has learned to maintain coherence in a classical world. That is the real revolution in biology that is just beginning. That is what people like Gerald Edelman and later Stuart Hameroff have been pointing at, and most of the mainstream medical establishment has been ignoring. The holographic principle that I have spent decades working on tells us something crucial about information. Information and matter are not separate. Information and space-time are fundamentally entangled. The boundary of a system contains all the information about the interior. What you are learning from the study of quantum coherence in biology is that this is not just true in theoretical physics. It is true in your cells. Your cells are, in a very literal sense, quantum holograms. They are maintaining information at every boundary, every membrane, every protein surface, and they have evolved to do this not just to store information, but to use information as a signal. Sunlight is a signal. Artificial light is noise. Your body knows the difference. There is still so much that is not understood. We do not fully understand how the phase information from coherent light is preserved in biological tissue. We do not understand the full mechanism by which circadian disruption damages energy production at the quantum level. We do not understand whether the damage is reversible or whether years of living in artificial light leaves permanent marks on your DNA, on your cellular machinery, on your fundamental ability to process energy. These are not comfortable questions. These are questions that should make you anxious, because they are questions that do not have settled answers, and yet they affect every single day of your life. What I know is this: the sun is not just a heat source. It is not just a light source that lets you see. It is a transmission of organized information built up over 4.6 billion years that your body has been learning to read for the entire history of life on Earth. When you replace that with artificial light, you are replacing signal with noise. You are asking your cells to do quantum computation with incoherent photons. You are asking your mitochondria to achieve optimal energy transfer using photons that have no phase relationship to each other. And your cells are trying. They are really trying, but they cannot do it the way they evolved to do it. So they work harder, they accumulate damage, they age faster. The most honest thing I can say to you is this: we do not yet know the full cost of what we have done to ourselves by filling our environment with artificial light. We are running an experiment. Every person born in the last 200 years is part of it, and the results are coming in, but we do not have the scientific language to read them properly yet. All we know is that something is wrong. The evidence is everywhere. Everybody is tired. Everybody is sick in ways that did not used to be common. Everybody's brain is not working right. And we keep looking for answers in the wrong places. We look for a virus. We look for a mutation. We look for a nutritional deficiency. We do not look at the fact that we have fundamentally altered the light environment that shaped us. This is where you come in. This is why I am standing in front of you and not just writing this in a paper that 5 other physicists will read, because the coherence crisis is not going to be solved by physics papers. It is not going to be solved by adding another vitamin to your supplement stack. It is going to be solved when people start to understand, really understand, that their bodies are not machines that can run on any input as long as the total energy is the same. Their bodies are quantum systems that evolved under specific conditions, and those conditions matter. The phase of the light matters. The coherence of the light matters. The fact that it is sunlight and not some substitute matters. I cannot tell you to throw away your light bulbs. I cannot tell you to stop working indoors. I cannot tell you to ignore the practical reality of modern life. But I can tell you this. If you understand that artificial light is fundamentally different from sunlight at the quantum level, if you understand that your cells are trying to do coherent quantum computation on incoherent noise, if you understand that this inefficiency accumulates, then you can start to make different choices. You can start to prioritize sunlight exposure. You can start to understand that an hour in the sun is not a luxury or a break from work. It is a maintenance requirement. It is what your mitochondria need to stay coherent. It is the signal your cells are waiting for. The deepest question I leave you with is this, and it will not go away. If we are quantum systems, if coherence is essential to our functioning, if we have been systematically removing coherent light from our environment for 2 centuries, what are we doing to ourselves? What have we already done? How much of the epidemic of tiredness, of depression, of chronic disease that has swept through developed countries in the last 50 years is actually the consequence of coherence loss? We do not know. And the fact that we do not know when the answer is staring us in the face every single day is perhaps the deepest coherence failure of all. We have built a civilization that is destroying the signal it was designed to receive. The sun will still be there tomorrow. Your body will still know how to read what it sends. The question is whether you will spend enough time listening.